There are seasons in life when the heavens feel impossibly still, when prayers rise like smoke but seem to vanish before reaching anywhere sacred. When you speak into the sky and the sky gives nothing back. When you beg God for a whisper, a sign, a clue. Anything but all you hear is the sound of your own breathing in the dark. It is in those seasons, more than any other, that faith is stretched, reshaped, and tested in ways comfort could never manage, because silence is never empty. Not when it comes from heaven. The silence of God isn't the absence of His presence, is the presence of His depth, and the deeper the work He is doing, the quieter the room becomes. This is the mystery no one warns you about. When heaven feels silent, God may be speaking in a frequency you've never had to listen to before, the silence that doesn't make sense. There comes a moment in every believer's life when heaven goes quiet, not disapprovingly, not coldly, but intentionally. You pray, and nothing, you cry, and the sky stays still. You stand in the middle of your need, your fear, your confusion, yet the one who promised to be with you seems strangely unreachable. This is the silence that confuses the soul, because it contradicts your expectation of God. If He loves you, why doesn't He intervene? If He hears you, why doesn't He speak? If He cares, why does He allow the ache to stretch so wide? But heaven's silence is never neglect. It's preparation disguised. You're not being ignored. You're being invited. The question is not, why is God quiet? The question is, what is He preparing me for that requires this kind of silence? God's silence is a strategy, not a withdrawal. We interpret silence as distance, but God uses silence as formation. When a teacher stops talking during a test, we don't assume they abandon the room. We understand that the silence means the test is in progress. Heaven works the same way. God withdraws noise so you can develop discernment. He removes the familiar so you can identify the subtle. He quiets the external so you're forced to explore the internal. He turns down the volume of miracles so you'll begin to recognize the whisper of maturity. Silence is not a sign that God has stepped away. It's proof that He is doing something so delicate, so essential that words would interfere when you can't hear Him. He's training your hearing. Here's the uncomfortable truth of spiritual growth. Faith has frequencies. There are seasons when God speaks in thunder, because you still need thunder to believe. There are seasons when He speaks through gentle rain, because you need reassurance more than revelation. And then there are seasons when He speaks beneath the noise, beneath the emotion, beneath the anticipation, because He's training you to hear Him differently. Heavens silence is an invitation to tune your soul, not to hear less, to hear more, not to hear louder, to hear clearer, not to hear what you want, to hear what you need. Silence breaks shallow faith. Shallow faith depends on signs, feelings, and constant validation. Deep faith can stand in the dark with no emotional feedback and still believe God is working. Silence is the birthplace of that kind of strength. It strips away the dependency on goobs. It exposes the false belief that God must constantly prove Himself. It cuts through the spiritual noise and forms a faith that can hold even when the world cannot. If faith is a structure, silence is the furnace that strengthens its beams. Without silence, faith remains fragile. With silence, faith becomes unshakable. Silence is a mirror that shows what's really inside when God stops answering the way you expect. The truth about your heart rises to the surface. You discover whether you trusted His hand or His character, whether you followed Him for comfort or for who He is, whether your worship was rooted in emotion or devotion. Silence exposes the dependency of your faith, then invites you to outgrow it. It doesn't condemn, it reveals. And what God reveals, He intends to heal. Silence teaches you the voice you keep missing. We often think God is silent, when in reality, He is speaking through channels we haven't learned to recognize. He speaks through restlessness, through closed doors, through unusual peace, through pressure, through delay. Through the scripture you keep returning to, through circumstances that seem random but carry purpose. Sometimes God's silence is Him changing the way He speaks, so you'll stop relying on only one way of hearing Him. He is training you for a deeper relationship, not a louder one. Heaven's silence isn't punishment, it's promotion. Every major transformation in Scripture was preceded by silence. Before Moses heard God from the burning bush, he lived 40 years in quiet. Before David was crowned king, he hid in caves with no word from heaven. Before Jesus began His ministry, He walked through the wilderness with no angel, no voice, no sign, just silence. Silence comes before destiny. God removes the noise of the world and the noise of your own heart, so that when He finally speaks, you won't mistake His voice for anything else. This is not punishment, it's preparation for elevation. If God is silent, it means the story isn't finished. We panic in silence because we assume silence means no. But heaven's silence is rarely denial, it is usually suspense. God is working, but working on layers you cannot see yet. Working on timing you cannot rush. Working on doors you're not ready to walk through. Working on details that require divine precision. Silence is simply the sound of God taking His time. And God never wastes time. Silence forces you to ask the right questions. Most people ask, God, why aren't you speaking to me? But silence pushes you to ask, God, what are you trying to develop in me? What am I missing that you want me to see? What part of me needs to grow before you give me what I'm praying for? What deeper level of faith are you calling me into? When heaven feels silent, God isn't avoiding your questions, He's redirecting them. He wants you to stop asking for relief and start asking for revelation. Silence turns you into the kind of person who can handle the answer some. Prayers require transformation before fulfillment. You might be praying for the thing, but God is preparing you for the weight of the thing. If He answered too soon, it would crush you. If He fulfilled too early, you would mishandle it. If He opened the door now, you'd walk through with the wrong heart. Silence is God shaping the soul required for the blessing you asked for. He's not withholding the answer, He's building the version of you who can carry it. Listening deeper requires letting go of noise to listen deeper. You must unclutter the interior world. Silence your fear, silence your timeline. Silence the pressure to know everything. Now, silence the belief that God must answer quickly or loudly. The deeper voice of God can only be heard when the shallow voices within you are quiet enough. God isn't absent here, just crowded. Silence clears the space so He can be heard again. The deeper you listen, the more you realize he never left. When you begin to listen beyond your emotions, beyond your fears, beyond your assumptions, something miraculous happens. You realize he has been speaking the entire time, not in the ways you expected, not in the volume you preferred, but in the ways that were shaping you, protecting you, and guiding you. He wasn't silent, he was subtle. He wasn't distant, he was deep. He wasn't withholding, he was working. God's quiet doesn't mean your story is quiet sometimes. Heaven is silent because your story is in a critical transition, just like a surgeon doesn't talk during the most delicate moment of the operation. God quiets the room when he is doing his most precise work. Silence is the sound of God restructuring your future. Your story is moving, even when your ears cannot hear the footsteps. What you learn in silence, you carry for life. The lessons learned in silence stay with you forever. A deeper peace, a steadier faith, a stronger resilience, a clearer discernment, a quieter heart, sharper spirit. Silence equips you for storms that feelings cannot prepare you for. It builds the kind of believer who can stand firm when others collapse, the kind of believer who trusts God not because of noise, but because of knowing when heaven feels silent. Listen deeper. Heaven's silence is sacred ground. It's the threshold between who you were and who God is forming you to become. It's the womb of transformation, the cave of revelation, the classroom of maturity. When heaven feels silent, don't withdraw, don't assume rejection, don't fear abandonment. Instead, listen deeper, listen beneath the emotion, beneath the anxiety, beneath the disappointment, beneath the noise of your own expectations. The voice of God is still there, not gone, simply deeper. He speaks in the stillness. He whispers in the ache. He moves in the quiet. He leads in the pause. Silence isn't God turning away. Silence is God turning you inward, so you can finally hear him in ways you never could before.